Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. My guest today is Jeff Chirico from the Chestnut Hill office, and he is the team leader of the Jeff Chirico Real Estate team, and we are going to talk today about the topic of client appreciation. In my opinion, there is nobody that does client appreciation like Jeff. His ideas are always creative and truly original, and I think that you're going to walk away from this podcast with some great ideas for your business. So we're going to get right into it with Jeff, pick his brain a little bit about the topic of client appreciation, and we'll pick it up on the other side. Let's say hi to Jeff. Jeff, how you doing today?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Jason. I'm great today. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now, I want to start out. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. And you did not see this coming, so I just want to make sure that my listeners know I'm blindsiding Jeff. But years ago, about 5 years ago, and you and I had this conversation, we were talking the other day. So for me personally, when I was in management, Jeff was the one that got away from me. So I actually interviewed Jeff years ago to come join us in Jenkintown, and I was spurned by Jeff. And I want to make that known to the public. Jeff flat out rejected me 5 years ago. So,
oh man, you're making me feel really bad now.
Hey, look, you ended up in the right place, right? Sue Walsh. First of all, Sue Walsh is much cooler than me, so it all ended up working out well in the end, right?
Well, I ended up going to a different brokerage, and then I learned the errors of my ways. And by the time I learned my mistakes, you were no longer in management. So
that is true. Well, as long as you learned your lesson, Jeff.
I learned my lesson.
All right. Okay. All right. So now that that's out of the way, that unpleasantness is out of the way. So I want to get into the client appreciation, but first I just want to mention, your background is kind of unique, and ultimately, we're going to talk about, what a great job you do in real estate. But before real estate, because for a lot of people out there, real estate is not their first career. And so can you talk about kind of how you got into real estate and what you were doing prior to this? And I specifically want to talk about something once we get past, the intro with you and how you kind of got into real estate. I want to ask you a little bit about finding your voice. So let's talk about, your background first.
Sure. So before real estate, I've been in real estate for about 5.5 years. My first half of my career, I was spent in television news. So I worked for a number of TV stations in Pennsylvania and then in Georgia, both as a general assignment reporter and then later as a consumer advocate and investigative reporter. And that for about 10 years, I was doing consumer advocacy, investigative reporting, looking out for viewers who had been harmed by bad business practices or government agencies. And I would then blow the whistle on them and report on those issues and help make those wrongs right if I possibly could. And I really enjoyed that. It gave me an amazing sense of satisfaction to be able to help people. And then when life kind of changes and, family obligations start to pop up, I realized that TV just wasn't going to be the place I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And at that point, I was doing some soul searching. My family was moving from Atlanta back to the Philadelphia area. And I realized that I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to be able to work hard and see that hard work pay off in the form of pay, right? So the harder you work, the more money you can potentially make. And that's really what I wanted to do, while at the same time using those consumer advocacy skills that I had built for 10 years in television.
Yeah. And the first place that I ever saw you was on the news, right? I saw you on Channel 6. I'm like, I know that guy. Where do I know this guy from? And it's always one of those things, but it's such a unique transition for someone, going, say, from TV into real estate. A lot of times when you're transitioning out of a career into real estate, you don't quite know how it's going to go, right? But the fact that you're out there talking to people every day, that, you're good with talking to people. I mean, that's a large part of what you were doing before. Seems like it would translate very well.
You're absolutely right. I mean, having to be able to convince people to allow you to interview them. I would talk to people and interview people at the very worst or very best stages in their lives. And so I had to develop a sense of how to approach people, how to talk to different people. And those skills definitely translate into real estate when you're trying to convince someone to allow you to represent them.
And I think this is a good place to start for us is, finding your voice in real estate, because it takes a little time to find your voice. And boy, have you found it, pretty quickly. And for some people, it may take a little bit longer. But can you talk about just finding your voice in real estate, finding your niche, and how that journey has been for you to get to the point where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think I'll be completely honest. In the very beginning, I was nervous. I was nervous to tell people that I was in real estate. I've built my business almost entirely ignoring my sphere of influence. When I moved back to Pennsylvania, I thought, well, why am I going to ask my friends and family to do business with me? I'm not even know what I'm doing right now. And so I thought I'm going to build my business off of doing open houses, off of doing social media outreach, off of maybe some leads for my broker, and then really start to build referrals. And that's what I've done almost entirely. And I, to be honest with you, I know coaches out there and managers out there, pulling hair out of their head, saying, "Really, you're ignoring your sphere?" Well, I'm not out there selling. I'm out there being myself and trying to build trust. But it took me a long time to figure out what is my approach to real estate. I don't put a big ask out there. None of my videos, I'm very rarely telling people, "Hey, call me right now. I'm going to help you buy or sell, and I'm the best out there." Listen, I've got to build trust with the people, whether it be through client appreciation events, whether it be through social media, whatever, email blasts, whatever it may be. There's a level of trust that I want to bring that I need to I guess get from my clients before I really start hitting them hard for referrals. And so for me, that salesy approach that I had I had learned from some coaches or from some managers just didn't fit for me, and it didn't feel authentic. And it took a little while for me to figure out who I was in real estate. And instead of trying to copy what other people do, I just had to go with what my gut was telling me to do. And for me, it was just be generous, think outside the box, be thoughtful, and then be trustworthy and not salesy. And that's my approach.
And I'll tell you what, boy, have you done that. I really admire some of the things that you're doing, just from a relational standpoint. Your relationship building is where it's at in real estate. And you've done an excellent job doing that with your creativity. And we're going to get right into that, because one of the things that you did for your clients pretty recently was the Fall Fun at the Farm Client Appreciation Day. And I saw the video on social media, and man, it works on so many levels. You not only had the event for your people, but you had a video of the event posted to social media, like I had mentioned. It looked great. People could see the fun that you were having. You had a client testimonial in that video, which is worth its weight in gold. It was awesome. You gave a shout out to the venue. You had live music. You had hay rides. So my question to you is, with all that said, how long did it take for you to put that event together? And what goes into planning something like that? I mean, you talk about being thoughtful. You have to really be thoughtful with these things and putting the events together. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the event was held at a farm up in the Warrington area, and I knew that I wanted to do some sort of outdoor gathering before it got too cold. And I ended up contacting the company, the farm. They said, "Sure, you can bring it in. You can bring your group in." We had 2 bonfires that were there that they took care of, and they had hay rides that they took care of. So the part that I had to bring, in addition to the money to pay for the venue, were paid for some live music. I paid for a little gift bag for each group, each family that came. I also paid for lunches for everybody. And I did a box. I wanted it to be COVID friendly. And so rather than, scoop a salad or grab a sandwich, I had individually boxed lunches that they could come up and they could take, and they would sit back at the counter or at the table and eat. And so, it probably took about a month of just kind of figuring out what food we were going to eat, what types of what kind of music we were going to have. Fortunately, the event was already at a fun venue where they already had corn mazes and a hayride and pumpkin patch. And I just brought in the lunches and some stickers to decorate the pumpkin, and then some live music. And we had over 100 people come and took part and had a great afternoon. And again, like you said, I also realized that this event is fantastic for my clients, showing that on my Instagram feed, my Facebook feed, on my YouTube channel is also important, because that's where people are going to look to figure out, hey, do I want to hire Jeff? And you tag that to the top of your Facebook page, and people see that and I may want to be part of this. It seems like a nice guy. And that's worth its weight in gold, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm just thinking of all the places that you can position that. I mean, obviously the most important thing is connecting with your people. But we're in the business of promotion, right? We want to be selling without selling. And that gives you the opportunity to do that in so many different places. Just to, put it out there and let people see it. And people want to gravitate towards you and towards what you're doing. And it made me feel that way. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I want to take a hayride. I want to hang out with Jeff now. You know what I mean? So it's cool.
Yeah. I think one of the things that struck me right when I first got my license was some of the statistics they threw out, that at settlement, about 85 or 90% of people said they would absolutely hire their real estate agent again. But then when push came to shove and they were ready to sell or buy again 10 years later, only 11% actually did, or some ridiculously low number. And I realized, listen, I'm able to develop a unique relationship with my clients. We have fun. We have a really good experience together. And each time I do one of these events, it reinforces that feeling of goodwill that we had at settlement. And so much like, when you go to a restaurant, you go to a restaurant one time, that you are not going to tell the world about that restaurant after one experience. But if you have consistently good experiences at that restaurant 4, 5, 6, 7 times, then that becomes your go-to restaurant. And you're absolutely going to tell people about that, because you can put your neck out on the line and you can feel confident that they're going to have a similar experience. I think the same thing goes with referrals. If we're not going to, a lot of these clients, yes, they may have a good experience with me, but are they really going to trust and put their neck on the line to tell their family, their friends, their coworkers about me after one experience with me? Some do, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that the majority will. And it's by doing these consistent experiences, by proving to them that I not only am a real estate agent, but I'm a really good guy, and I like to step beyond my job description. That's what convinces people that, yeah, this guy's a real deal, and he's trustworthy, and I want to do business with him again or recommend him again.
You're so right. It's almost like rekindling a relationship, right? What you're doing, that goodwill that you said that you have at the settlement table, or at least we hope that you have that goodwill at the settlement table with your clients. But kind of expanding on that, one of the things that you did now really blew me away. And I was like, this is one of the best ideas ever, in my opinion, was again, on social media, I see that you had last year your Santa tour 2020, right? Yeah. So you hired a Santa, or, you can tell us about it, what exactly you did. But I'm telling you, from beginning to end, even you dressed as Rudolph, right? You have your mask on and you have a Rudolph nose on. Talk a little bit about your Santa tour 2020 and what went into that, because that was amazing. That just blew me away.
So my first year in real estate, I decided to do an event I called Sit with Santa, where I had Santa in a little alcove in my office, and I would invite my clients, and I would invite even community members to come and get sit with Santa, get a free picture. I had some snacks and things like that. So I did that for 4 consecutive years. And then COVID hit. And then last December, it was clear that I could not bring people inside. And it was clear that people were not going to the mall with their children or to wherever to get the picture with Santa. And so I was ready to cancel my Sit with Santa altogether because I couldn't figure out how to do this in a way that would be safe, and also fun. And so I just came up with this idea of calling that Santa up and say, hey, rather than 3 hours, I'm going to hire you for about 10 hours and you're going to ride around in a limo and we are going to go and visit about over a dozen of my past clients. And so that's what we did. We started off in Marsville and we worked our way through Bucks County and Montgomery County, and we stopped in their front yards. They knew we were coming, right? They'd already signed up. So they, and I gave them a rough window of when Santa was going to arrive. So I had a big sticker on the limo that said Santa Tour 2020, and Santa was in the back seat. And we went from house to house, and the families came out, and Santa came up masked, and the kids, for the most part, were masked. So were the family members. And we just had this opportunity for Santa to meet the kids right in their front yards. And it was, after a really difficult year, I heard from some of my clients and even my clients' parents, grandparents, that this was one of the highlights of the entire year, to be for their kids to see this is the magical experience and the smile on their face. So we went from, I don't even know, it was like 9 a.m. until like 7 p.m. And we hit, I think, over 15 or 16 locations.
I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know how I one up you on that one. I mean, I really don't. I need to get like a Santa sled and literally, flying reindeer. I don't even know how you top that. Right? That's amazing to me.
Well,
that's awesome.
What was also really amazing too was the response that I got from my clients. So I asked them as well. I had this big limo, and only Santa, to be safe, right? I didn't want to ride with Santa, so I followed. But I had this big limo with nothing in it, and I said to my clients, we're going to make a stop. We're going to bring Santa, and we're going to ask you to contribute food for the interfaith food pantry in Abington Township. And boy, did my clients respond. I mean, I was getting boxes of food from them and bags full of food from each one of them. And that limo, like Santa had hardly any space left by the end of the day. We had hundreds of pounds of food that I was able to take for the food pantry that week. And that part was just like gave me chills, just being able to just turn over all of this food to the food bank.
I'll tell you what, Jeff, I mean, when we talk about in real estate, kind of, serving people first, the business will come from that. And I think that is one of the greatest examples that I have heard. And this is not hyperbole in real estate. You are hitting so many important things with your clients, but then you're also doing good for the community on top of that. And more power to you, man. I mean, that's just an amazing use of your creativity. And so one of the questions that I did have, not everybody can work on a big budget with these things. So, budget wise, do you allocate certain amount of money every year for what you're going to do, or do you just kind of wing it, or how do you do it budget wise for yourself?
Yeah, that it's changed over the past couple of years, because early on, my first couple of years, I didn't have a lot of disposable income as I'm just getting the business started. Now I am. So I am able to allot a certain amount of money for these events. And I've actually gotten away from sending out, I've cut back on my mailings. I used to do, kind of farming mailings. And, I just found that hitting the people that I already know is a far more valuable way to spend my money than trying to touch up people who don't know me. And so I've kind of dialed back my mailings, and I've used that money to put towards some of these events. But you're right. To your point, you can do these. Yes. So the Santa event cost, probably a couple thousand, few thousand. The farm event probably cost $4,000 to $5,000, to be honest with you, with all the food that I had to get. So yeah, it's not inexpensive. But I also think there isn't another way to build that level of goodwill. You have to be consistent with it, and you have to be generous with it. And you're right, business will follow.
Well, it's just like investing in any other business, right? If you open a new restaurant in town, people aren't going to automatically gravitate to your restaurant just because it's a new restaurant, right? You have to get the word out about, number one, what's going to separate you from other restaurants, what you're going to offer. You have to invest in that business, and real estate is the same exact thing. And so I know that's not cheap, right? For a lot of agents, they're probably like, oh, that's so much money. But can you talk about the impact that has had on your business specifically? I mean, if you get one real estate deal out of that, if you get one referral, right, it pays for itself already. And I can't imagine the goodwill and the potential business that can come out of that for you, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, it's hard to say that there's one particular event that will lead to X amount of dollars in business, because this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's consistently doing things like this. It's not just doing it one time, right? I mean, it's consistently being generous, it's consistently being thoughtful, it's consistently having these events. That said, I was anticipating this question, and based on if I took a look at what I got from the people who participated in the Sanator 2020 from last December, I will have closed about 2.5 million in sales from people who are either were part of that event or who are friends and referrals from people who participated in that event. But again, that's just in 1 year. What does this impact then have over 2 years and 3 years? And as the more you're consistent with it, it's just going to snowball.
It's yeah, absolutely. I mean, every year it's going to get bigger. It's going to be like Jeffapalooza pretty soon. You're going to have thousands of people chanting your name with for the stuff that you're doing. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And so we talked a little bit about the planning that goes into these events. So do you sit down, say at the beginning of the year, and kind of plot out what you want to do? Like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to repeat this event, this year because it was really popular last year, and we're going to add in this event on top of it. You had said, allocating, say, some of your farming money to some of these client appreciation events because that's what works. So if that's what works, are you going to do that more? And do you have to plan way ahead to do these things?
Yeah. So my goal this year was to do 4 client appreciation events, have one each quarter. I did not. I failed on that. The spring took me and it was such a busy spring. I just didn't have time to be able to plan the spring client appreciation event. However, yes, I do. In the beginning of this past year, I decided I was going to try to do 4. I ended up only doing 3. But yeah, I mean, it was planning. And for instance, and this I wanted to mention this too. My first event was fairly inexpensive. And a lot of these events can be fairly inexpensive. For instance, what I did this past winter, early spring was a virtual event. This was it was a tough winter. Snow was on the ground for 6 months. None of us couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't go to theaters. We couldn't go to games, right? We were pretty much stuck within our 4 walls because we were still, we hadn't even gotten vaccinated yet, most of us. So what I decided to do was have a virtual mentalist show for my clients. I think I paid the performer, $300. And then I invited my clients to participate on a Saturday night at 8:00. And it was a very interactive show. I think I had 20 something people on the call. And they were left stunned and shocked. They couldn't understand, they were shocked by the performance. It was really fun. And so that could be a relatively inexpensive way of tapping into your clients who are at home maybe over the winter with nothing else to do. And so that is just those virtual events, far less expensive. Now, I ended up getting a little party bag and delivering it to each of their doorsteps before with popcorn and a bottle of wine and some candy. But you don't have to do that, right? So you can just make it as expensive or as inexpensive as you want, just a few $100s perhaps. And you can be doing similar types of events as well.
So I just want to ask, what do I have to do to be on your client appreciation participation list? Do I need to buy a house from you? I kind of just want to be a part of these events, man. I mean, God, that's just so cool. I mean, it's really cool. And to your point, like, you don't have to spend a ton of money. In fact, I want to mention this because this came out in a timely fashion yesterday. Brad Pat, who is our regional manager in our area, sent out an email called Accelerate Grow by Referrals. Right. And one of the things on there were client appreciation ideas. So I just want to mention a couple of these. First and foremost, maybe think about who your target market is. You know, do clients with no children, clients with young children, clients with older children. Think about who you're gearing these events to, number one. And number two, this isn't the full list, but I'm just going to throw a couple out there that I highlighted. Having a fall event like yourself at an orchard, you could bring a photographer for a family portrait. You can get tickets to a minor league or major league game of some sort. You could do a neighborhood food truck if you want to do that. You could do an event to support a local charity. You could do a bowling night. You could do a pooch portrait. I like this idea of getting pictures of pets. People love their pets, right? So you could hire a photographer to do that. A gift wrapping giveaway, or you could do Popeyes, right? I do a lot of Popeyes. You could do pies for Popeyes. You could do mums in the fall. You could Popeye with coffee gift cards this time of year. And last but not least, the one I liked was New Year's gift bag with noisemakers and hats. I thought that was pretty cool. And that's kind of like what you were talking about, Jeff, right? So that's just a couple of things to get creative with this time of year with your clients, right?
Yeah, and some other ideas. I mean, virtual does allow you to do things that you, in perhaps in a less inexpensive or a less expensive way. For instance, you could have a cooking class. Right? Maybe you hire a chef, a top chef down in the city to do a virtual cooking class. You could also do kind of a virtual wine and cheese or beer and cheese pairing, and have the ingredients of the cheese and some of the beer, delivered to their doorstep. And this may not be for your entire client base. Maybe these are for your top referrals, right? And so you give a box or a basket of wine and cheese, and then we have a virtual tasting. So there's so many opportunities out there, both in person and virtual. It's just kind of thinking outside the box and figuring out, right, who you're trying to target. My Santa event clearly targeted families with children, which is why this fall event, I made it clear, like, hey, listen, you don't need to have kids to have fun here, right? This is all about you just coming out and enjoying a beautiful day at the farm. And my mentalist show was geared for all ages. And I think that is something that, and I also have a really large client base that are Orthodox Jewish. And so whenever I have these events, I also have to be aware, kind of, is there food that they can eat that is kosher? Are these events that they can participate in? Clearly not the Chris Santa event, but what am I going to do differently in order to make sure I don't alienate those other clients of mine? So there's a lot of thought that needs to come into them, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I wanted to ask you, if you're willing to share with us, what do you have in store for 2022? How do you top what you've already done? Is there anything new? Is there anything new that you're thinking of or working on that you're willing to share with us?
Well, Santa Tour 2021 is going to full steam ahead on that one, and next year I think I am going to try food trucks, and I think I'm going to try to do more than one food truck. I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe every other month do another food truck. The cost is probably anywhere, depending on how many people come, $500 to $1,000. But again, consistency is key in this business, and if people can feel confident that, like this, and see that you're constantly and consistently reaching out to them, that is worth, so much in this business. So I think food trucks are going to be an event this year. And then I think that fall event was such a hit that I'm going to do it again this year.
Well, I'll tell you, I love the fact that you keep mentioning consistency, because you do the client appreciation thing to a T. Right. And you take it to levels that maybe people haven't taken it to yet. And that works for you. But whatever works for you out there listening is just do it consistently. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever, find what works and do it consistently is the name of the game. All right. So I want to switch it up before we get out of here. I have a couple more things I want to mention. Okay. So one is, your social media game is awesome. And one of the videos that just had me cracking up was your Windsor Castle video that you did with the English accent. So did you practice your King's English before you released that video?
Clearly, Jason, you can tell I did not practice anything before I released that video. You clearly haven't seen my video I released this morning then, have you?
I have not. Now I have something to look forward to. When we get
I'm in Lederhosen. So
okay.
So yeah, you'll have to check that out.
Well, 'tis the season, right? October.
Yeah. Well, my house that I've just listed is a kind of like a Bavarian time capsule of sorts, and so it just kind of lend itself to doing something along those lines. But
I love that, and and I do want to mention. Another great thing that you do, all kidding aside, is your Foodie Friday segment. And we talk about consistency. And so I watch your Foodie Fridays. So talk a little bit about that and what led you to do that, because that's fun. That's something that's cool that your clients can see you doing.
Yeah, and people talk about it all the time, and I'm so shocked that it has had that kind of response. So I always love the idea of building community and being part of this community. And it really, it's so simple. It's a 30-second reel on Instagram, and I should probably put it on TikTok as well. But I just go into a restaurant. I mean, I'm eating out at least once a week, maybe, and I love to try new places. And so I thought, wow, if I'm already getting food, take a picture of the restaurant, take a picture of me eating it, and then I just record a 30-second, informational piece about the restaurant and throw some music behind it, and it's done. And my idea was, building community, supporting local businesses, showing that you are in touch with the community, and helps build authority for that community as well. People see you as an expert in Montgomery County or wherever that restaurant may be. And yeah, they don't know that they don't know that you're just like everybody else. You're just putting yourself out there and helping small businesses out. And so much goodwill has come from that. People really appreciated it and have reached out. A lot of not just restaurant owners, but just people in the community have come to love it.
Yeah. And it's something that you love to do. Right. And, I love to explore new restaurants. So that's why, I kind of can gravitate towards that. I kind of identify with what you're doing out there. I think it's a great idea. How many, now you said you have like a gym behind you, right, in your basement. Now, how many extra hours of exercise have you had to do since you started this Foodie Friday segment? Because I'd see some of the stuff that you're eating out there and I'm just like, oh man, that's an extra 2 hours in the gym, Listen, if it's dessert, I don't eat it all. I have a bite and then I don't finish it. Well, I love what you're doing. And the last question I'm going to ask you, and this is putting you on the spot. Now, I don't know if you can do this, but my entire life, I have had this song in my head. Okay. Now, can you tell me, being in your profession or your previous profession, can you recite the lyrics to the Action News theme song?
Move closer to your world, my friend. Take a little bit of time. I'm so bad.
That's awesome.
World, my friend, and you'll see.
I was actually going to have the theme song on today when you came on, but I thought that was a little much. You passed the test, and I am very impressed that,
So I started watching Jim Gardner when I was in my playpen. Listen, I'm a freelance reporter for Channel 6. I do it here and there to help out when they need me. I love just kind of keeping my foot in the TV biz here and there. But a little kind of secret. So when I'm going live at the 10 o'clock news, right after the 10 o'clock news for PHL 17, we then have to go do the 11 o'clock news for Channel 6. And so, if I'm out on the field ready to do a live shot, my photographer and I are standing there. I have my earpiece in so I can hear what's playing. And inevitably the 10 o'clock news is ending and we're standing there ready to be the lead story of the 11. And my photographer and I, depending on who the photographer is, we are always singing that theme song along with it when it's playing at the end of the 10 o'clock news. We all grew up watching it. And so for us to be able to, we all know the words, like the back of our hand.
You know what's so funny about that? So today I go on to YouTube and I find like a 2-minute, 15-second clip of the entire song. Yeah. I have never heard the entire song, and there's other lyrics that I did not know even existed. If you listen to the entire thing, it's a trip, man. I was pretty shocked that I had never heard the whole thing before.
Well, yeah, and I hadn't either. I know what you're talking about. And they actually, back in the 90s, I think it was the 90s, Channel 6 decided that they were going to kind of freshen up the song because it had been the same song since the 70s, the same version. So they were going to freshen it up, and that lasted 2 days. And there was such backlash, so many phone calls from people, so irate that they would mess with that song that it has gone back and they've left it. I mean, now we're talking it's 50 years of Action News, right? This year. So that theme song's been playing for 50 years. So.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a Philly iconic, you
don't mess with it
song. You can't mess with it. It's like messing with, when they brought out the new Coke, everybody was in an uproar and went back to classic, and that was it. So anyway, listen, Jeff, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed picking your brain for a little bit. And, for those of you out there, find Jeff on Instagram, find him on YouTube, look at his stuff and what he's doing. He's doing a great, great job. So Jeff, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you out in the field pretty soon.
Jason, I'm flattered. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great opportunity. It's good seeing you again.
That was the interview this week with Jeff Chirico. What a great guy to talk to. Had some really awesome ideas to incorporate into your business. A couple things that I took away from our conversation with Jeff. Number one is be original. I think one thing that Jeff does extremely well is that he is creative, right? He comes up with these great creative ideas that he knows that his clients will enjoy, and really does a great job of the execution of those ideas. But I think his originality speaks for itself. And no matter what you're doing in our business, try to be original and provide value for your clients. And that's what Jeff does. When everybody is doing the same thing out there, it becomes so repetitive and we don't provide that value to our clients. So try and be original with your ideas and execute. Number two, be authentic. I think another thing that Jeff does extremely well is that he knows who he is, right? He has found his voice in this industry, and he is his best authentic self when he's doing these client appreciation events. Now, that may not be what your strength is, right? So you have to find out what works for you. But whatever it is, just be authentic and be yourself. That will make people want to gravitate towards you and to do business with you. And last but not least, number three, and I know I've said this a million times over, but be consistent. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Jeff is really good at being consistent with his client appreciation. He is kind of allocating money from other places into his client appreciation event because that's what works for him. But he is consistent with it. So if farming is where you're getting the majority of your business, then by all means, be consistent with that. If you are a referral based and you are totally relational and maybe networking is your thing, right? Be consistent with your networking. It doesn't matter what it is, but just be consistent. And Jeff really does that with his business. Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet or left us a review, please do so. We always appreciate the support. And if we haven't covered a topic yet that you would like us to discuss, please reach out to me at jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. We always like hearing from you and your feedback. We look forward to having you back in another couple of weeks, but until then, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you next time on the Everything Real Estate Podcast.